The Houston Texans schedule is out, but what portion of the schedule is the most important portion of the schedule? Let's talk about it right now. Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans, and let's talk about which portion of this 2024 Texans schedule is the most important. Look, the Texans have a tough schedule. When you're as successful as they were last year, you're going to have better opponents, and it's going to be a tougher schedule. And no, the schedule makers did not do the Texans any favor with some of the sections of the schedule that they have to play. But when you look at the schedule overall, it's not super tough from a travel standpoint. Only back-to-back road games a couple of times, yes. Playing Kansas City and Baltimore in a short amount of time, that's not ideal. They've got to play on the same schedule that you've got to play on. They just play a little bit different opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers, which isn't as good as playing the Houston Texans, but that's a conversation for another time. Could have done a better job putting another team that's worth a hoot on that Christmas matchup. The Steelers, I get they got a lot of fans, but we couldn't have thrown an awesome team that's going to be competing for an AFC championship in there, so it would have been really fun on Christmas and the Saturday before, but I digress. What portion of this Texan schedule is the most important portion, easy for me to say, of the schedule? Let's take a look at it. Here we go. We got the schedule pulled up for you all the way from week 1 to week 18. You start and end at home with AFC South matchups. Now, I feel like, to me, the schedule breaks down into 3 sections, okay? I call it the start, which is the first 7 weeks. I call it that stretch before the bye week, and then the gauntlet there at the end. It's only a gauntlet because, hey, look, the Miami Dolphins are supposed to be pretty darn good. The Kansas City Chiefs are supposed to be one of the best teams in the AFC. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens are really good. And then it's an AFC South team on the road, which, hey, the AFC South, pretty competitive division, one of the deeper divisions around football. Now, obviously, if Will Levis stinks, the gauntlet gets a little less gauntlet-y, but you still have to play a lot of time and have a big break before you finish up the season. So which stretch of the season is the most important? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the gauntlet is not the most important. It's only a 4-game stretch. And yes, there are 4 really important games. The games against the Dolphins, the games against the Chiefs and the Ravens could absolutely be deciding where the Texans shake up and shake out in the AFC. Those could all be seeding matchups where beating the Dolphins and the Ravens means you're the 2 seed to the Chiefs, or beating the Chiefs and the Dolphins means that you're the 2 seed to the Ravens, or winning all 3 means that you own the tiebreaker and they're the 2 seed to you, the top seed in the AFC. Those are all really important games, but those games carry a lot less gravity if you don't take care of business in the other portions. The start and the stretch before the bye are more important than that gauntlet part there at the back end of the schedule. Miami, Kansas City, and Baltimore, yes, they're important and tough teams, and coming out of the bye week, you've got to play well. But those games don't matter if you're not taking care of business in the first 13 weeks. So let's take a look at that stretch right between the start and the gauntlet. I call it the stretch before the bye. It's a 6-game stretch. It starts and ends with an AFC South opponent. There's another AFC South opponent in there, so you're going to play all the teams in the AFC South in this stretch. You're going to play another team in the AFC, and remember, records in the AFC are important for tiebreakers. And then you're going to play 2 of the best teams in the NFC. So the Lions and the Cowboys should be competing for their division titles and should be finding themselves with an opportunity to compete in the playoffs in the NFC and maybe win the NFC. So that stretch there, that starts with the Colts at home, finishes with the Jaguars on the road. Here's why this stretch is super important. It's 3 at home, it's 3 on the road. You don't have any sort of scheduling quirk to this, with the exception of playing on short notice on a Thursday night football game to the Jets. That's the only kind of scheduling quirk to this. But this is where you find out about the Texans. This is where the level of the season, that 6-game stretch from 8 to 13, that's where you're going to really learn about this team, and you're really going to find out hey, the Texans got something here. The Texans are going to be the AFC South champions. They're competing for the AFC number 1 seed, or the Texans are scrounging and hanging around the AFC South conversation, which right about this time on the schedule last year, they were hanging around. They ultimately won the AFC South. That's where you find out about the team. That's where you find out what level of season you're going to have. Super successful, kind of successful, hang on, make the playoffs, get in, hope you have a good time in the dance. To me, the most important part of this schedule is that start, that 7-week stretch where you're going to face lesser quarterback competition, when you've got a couple of AFC South opponents in there and you've got some other AFC opponents in there as well. Look, you got to start the season well. The schedule gets, to me, toughest 8 through 18. So those first 7 weeks, you've got to make hay if you're the Houston Texans and give yourself some wiggle room, okay? You got to give yourself some wiggle room with success in those first 7 weeks if you're the Texans. You should or could face 3 rookie quarterbacks in that stretch. I believe J.J. McCarthy and Drake May will be playing for the Vikings and for the New England Patriots, and I know Caleb Williams is going to be playing for the Bears. That's 3 rookie quarterbacks, okay? It's Jacksonville at home. You beat them at their place last year. You played them close at your place. You had a better offseason than them. You can win that football game. It's the Colts on the road. It's Anthony Richardson's first real NFL action. We'll find out what he is with his shoulder. It's your coach's foil for the next few years. Steichen and DeMeco Ryans hired in the same offseason. One's the offensive mastermind. One's the defensive mastermind who's the master motivator. Both of them coached the crap out of their teams last year, and neither one are going anywhere anytime soon. So you start the season with that, really sort of test your mettle. And then you got a couple of solid teams that I don't believe are really quite in that championship contender level just yet. Look, the Packers certainly are getting a lot of love. They've got better Super Bowl odds than the Texans as we talk right now, but you're better than the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love is not as good as CJ Stroud. They've got a bunch of young wide receivers. You've got a bunch of wide receivers that are more proven commodities and have had a little bit more of a track record than some of those young guys. Your defense is a little bit better and deeper. The Packers, not quite on the Texans level. They're not far, but they're not quite on the Texans level. And then the Bills. My God, the Bills had to get rid of damn near everybody, it feels like, in this offseason. It feels like they took a big, big hit from an overall talent level. And look, they've got a really good quarterback in Josh Allen. That keeps them in the game. But to me, those first 7 weeks of the schedule, as we looked at it there, those first 7 weeks, that is the important part. You want to have that rough stretch before the bye week? Well, you can survive that if you have success in the first 7 weeks. Now, what does success in the first 7 weeks look like? It looks like no more than 3 losses, but at the very least, if you're looking at a super successful first 7 weeks, you're looking at 1 or 2 losses so that you give yourself a little wiggle room. Remember, you got to get to probably 10, 11 wins to make the playoffs in the AFC. You probably got to get to 10 or 11 to win the AFC South. That's your goal. If you win your division, it's better than not winning your division. You at least get 1 home game. And if you want to be a big dog in the AFC, you want to run with the Chiefs and you want to run with the Ravens, well, you'll have your opportunity to prove you're a big dog later in the year because your record's real close to theirs and you're in the conversation for AFC seeding. So you see how if you don't get off to a good start, then yeah, the bye week stretch, those 6 games before the bye week becomes super important because then you have to overachieve in those. And then the finish to the season, you add even more pressure to the gauntlet that is those final 4 games. But if the Texans can cruise through those first 7 games, pick up a good amount of victories, you allow yourself some wiggle room, some disappointment. Hey, short week going to New York, that's tough. Don't love that. Hey, maybe on Halloween night, Aaron Rodgers pulls off a big victory against you. Okay, you can survive that because you beat the Bears and the Vikings and the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills and the Colts and the Jags at home. Like, you can survive some late season hiccups if you take care of your business in those first 7 weeks. If you don't take care of your business in those first 7 weeks, then the pressure starts to really fold in on itself in the rest of that schedule in weeks 8 through 18, where it's the toughest stretch for the Texans. And I know there's a bye week and basically another bye week added in there with the long stretch between weeks 17 and 18. I get that. And that should make that stretch a little easier. But those first 7 weeks, man, if they take care of business there, they set themselves up to do something really fun in that stretch before the bye week. And if they take care of their games there, then they have the opportunity to do something really special coming out of the bye week. And that's what we're all looking for here in 2024 is a special season out of D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, and company. What say you? Did you agree with me? Is that the most important stretch of the schedule, the start, those first 7 weeks? Or is it the stretch before the bye week, the gauntlet? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down to the comment section, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So much fun stuff coming your way in the summer. And we've got mini camp on the horizon next week, OTAs, whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, the first week of June will give us mandatory mini camp. So OTAs, mandatory mini camp still to come. You'll get breakdowns of that here on the YouTube channel. Don't miss it. You can subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you have the notifications so you never miss anything, especially when I go live, hang out, and have some fun with you guys live, chatting it up, taking questions, answering things. It's always a blast here on YouTube. Really appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.